Now, most Apollo players are throwing their games and they don't even realize it. Now, they think they're doing damage, they think they're carrying, but in reality, they're missing the one thing that actually makes Apollo broken. So today, I'm giving you the ultimate Apollo masterclass, everything from laning, positioning, mechanics, and how to completely take over games. And if you ever wanted the hard carry in Deadlock, this is the video for you. And if you find it helpful in any way, shape, or form, do me a favor, hit that like button, of course subscribe to the channel if you're new, as always, and let me know in the comments down below what character you want to see next. Now, just a little bit information about the masterclass series if you're not familiar with this or you're new to the channel. Basically, I'm going to be talking about abilities, the strengths and weaknesses of the characters, but when we're talking about the abilities, we're going to be going into super depth, so we're talking about actual numbers, everything you need to understand. Then we're going to go into playstyle, positioning, and so on. That's enough about that, let's dive straight in. Now, the first ability that Apollo has to offer is Disengaging Sigil. This is typically the first item you want to be starting in lane. To give you the actual information about this ability, you draw a signal sphere in front of you and then leap backwards as it explodes, damaging and slowing enemies caught in it. It's on a 12-second cooldown, it does 100 damage, it gives enemies minus 30% move speed, which is a 4-second slow duration, and it has a 6.5 meter radius at the very beginning. Now, this ability allows you to do a lot of early game damage to the enemy laners and grants you a lot of pressure. Now, not only is it great for doing a lot of early game damage, you can also use it as sort of an escape tool. His entire kit, all of his abilities allows him to use some sort of movement. He is the movement ability character, for instance, so it can be used as a launchpad when used directly towards the floor if Apollo needs some verticality or if you just need to reposition anywhere. Now, one quick tip with this Disengaging Sigil is you can throw in a light melee directly, or you can actually buffer the ability, for example. So you press 1 or your ability button plus your light melee button, whatever that button is. Now, it is useful in some aspects, but you have to keep in mind as you go further and further up in ranks, or you're playing against people that are more in tuned or more aware of what's going on, they can anticipate this and learn from your mistakes or habits and start parrying these, so you have to be careful of when to use it. Now, what you can kind of do is condition the enemy, and that is by using the disengaging symbol and then going for a light melee a couple times, and if they're not parrying, eventually they're going to catch on and start parrying. Now, once you see they start parrying, this is your opportunity to use the Disengaging Sigil, wait, then go for a heavy melee. Now, in this game, you never want to make things super consistent because it's very easy to fall into really bad habits, so if you can condition the enemy into doing something and then flipping the switch and doing something else, it's always a good idea. Now, for the AP order or upgrades, 1 AP is plus 30 damage, 2 AP is plus 20% fire rate and plus 50% bullet speed for 10 seconds. Then 5 AP is on player hit, plus 2 stamina restored, and resets air jump or dash limit, which is pretty cool and pretty useful for escaping in different instances. Now, moving on to his second ability, you have Riposte or Riposte, depending on where you're from. But basically, you're prepared to deflect the next incoming attack. On a successful deflection, you briefly become invulnerable before performing a dash forward that stuns an enemy and reduces their bullet resistance. Now, right away, it's on a 22-second cooldown, so a pretty long cooldown. You do get 0.3 seconds of invulnerability duration. On pommel hit, or when you hit somebody with the deflection, they get a 0.6 second stun duration and minus 22% melee resistance. It also is a 3-second debuff for duration for that melee resist. Now, this is good for two things, both an initiation tool and a disengaging tool if you find yourself in some rather sticky situations. Now, you can use Riposte or Riposte basically on pretty much everything. I don't think you can use it on minion creeps anymore. You used to be able to do it, now you can't. But basically, it's good in a lot of different scenarios and is rather annoying. Now, you used to do a melee build. You could still do the melee build, it's super situational, and the pulse was super useful for that. Now, your different ability points is the first ability point is a minus 7-second cooldown. On 2 ability points, it's a minus 30% melee resist. On 5 ability points, it's a plus 1.6 second stun duration, which is honestly a pretty long time for a super mobile character like this. Now, in my eyes, Apollo has essentially 4 get out of jail free cards, and this is only his second get out of free jail, with his first one being his first ability, and then his third one being the next ability, which is Flawless Advance. So let's talk about Flawless Advance. Basically, you perform a series of lunges in any direction, delivering piercing stabs ahead of you. You want to hold your ability key to time your attacks, dealing more damage the longer it's held. Releasing your attack during the perfect window deals maximum damage, and you need to press 3 to recast. And you can also change the directions by pressing A and D or S and W, whatever the your ability buttons are, your movement abilities. Now your base damage with landing the abilities is 30, and then it's 40 for a max hold. It's a 26-second cooldown, and you have 3 max lunges. Now on a perfect hit, you hit people for 65 damage, which is pretty insane. Now on your AP order, your first AP is perfect hit on hero, you heal 30. Second AP is a minus 10-second cooldown, and you get increased lunge speed. For your 5th and final AP, you get plus 65 perfect damage and increased spirit scaling. You also have increased lunge attacking dash distance. Now, some tips is that with Flawless Advance, you can be stalled in order to cast any active items, whether it's Cold Front or anything of that Restorative Locket or anything else. You can also use different spells such as Riposte or Riposte, Itani Lo Sahn, and his Disengaging Sigil to weave in and out. Now let's talk about his ultimate, Itani Lo Sahn. Basically, you charge up and perform a long-range slash. Struck enemies are cursed and stuck in slow motion. When this effect expires, they suffer devastating damage, dealing bonus damage against half health enemies. Now, while in slow motion, or whatever the case may be, Apollo is invulnerable and enemies take reduced damage. So you need a time when you're using your ultimate and you're trying to get other ultimates out as well while using Apollo, because you might be griefing your teammates if you're not timing things correctly sometimes. Although you don't always run into those cases, sometimes you do, so it's just a forewarning. Now off rip, you do 190 delayed damage. You also get a plus 60% damage bonus. Right away, it's on a 125-second cooldown. It has a 70% time slow damage reduction and a 50% low health threshold. Basically, when you're in the laning stage or the laning phase of the match, you can really get ahead of the enemies if you get your ultimate as quickly as possible by farming the creeps, doing your boxes, and rotating properly. You can absolutely blow up the enemies in the lane and get a massive power spike. Now your AP order, for your first AP, you get a plus 8 meter dash range, your second AP is a minus 40-second cooldown, and your 5th AP is plus 40% bonus damage. Now if all else fails and you can't get any kills, or you feel like you're gonna die and if you've already used all of your other movement abilities, then you can use it as your final get out of free jail card, which can be used as a last defense to run away as well. Basically, Apollo is the definition of a lane bully, so if you're laning, trying to do as much damage as possible is probably the best way to go about anything. If you can get ahead early with Apollo, that allows you to roam around a lot, help the rest of your team, and just be a nuisance for the enemies entirely. Now I do want to talk about some of his base vitality stats. So when you hop into the game right away, your max health is 740, your health regen is 2, unlike a character like Raytown who only has 1 health regen, 2 is a decent start. You don't have any default bullet resist or spirit resist, your movement speed is 7.2 meters a second, sprint speed is 1.6 meters a second, and you start off with 3 stamina, which is pretty good. Now it says 3 stamina, but technically speaking, how I like to phrase it, is that his other abilities are sort of another stamina piece. So essentially you have like 6 stamina if you want to think of it that way, which is pretty insane if you think about it, but that's just my own opinion. Now I do want to quickly talk about some of his strengths and weaknesses, but for some of his strengths, he's extremely high spirit damage. So if you're playing in a team composition that has a lot of gun damage carries, it's pretty good. He has a rather high skill ceiling and excels in a lot of different duels. He has unique defenses as well as a unique air stalling, leading to strong movement. He's also extremely strong in the early stages of the laning phase and mid game, so this is where you want to do a lot of your damage or focus a lot of your time into. Then when you look at some of his more weaknesses per se, his defense is very protected on riposte, so a whiff can easily lead to quick demise. He's also rather reliant on cooldowns and has a very mediocre weapon damage. Although they did slightly buff some of his weapon damage in recent patches, it is still not the best per se, but is decent. He also has low range and spacing required in order to survive in different types of fights. Now, just like any spirit character in my eyes, they tend to fall off in the late stage of the game. So if the game's been going on for quite a while, because enemies start to build a lot of defenses, spirit resilience, for example, is one of the big items that are picked currently, so he starts to fall off a little bit, but that's not saying that he's completely useless or bad in the, end of the match, but he still has some of his uses, but he's not going to be doing as much damage as he once was in the early stages. So finishing games quickly, in theory, is the best way to take advantage of this character. Now let's talk about some of the counters. So if you're looking to counter Apollo, or if you're playing Apollo, knowing what your counters are is a good idea. For Apollo, he has a fairly low range as well, so long range trades like Great Talon's Charge Shot or attacking him from high ground is a great idea. Although he does have a lot of movement abilities and stamina, he can't necessarily punish enemies that are super high up without, using a ton of these abilities. Now following that, since Apollo relies on his cooldowns for most of his damage, an early Silence Wave is a great idea to stop any retaliation from his Disengaging Sigil or Riposte. Items such as a curse or anything else is a great idea. Also, when Apollo is in his ult, his Itani Lo Sahn, when he's starting up, he's not immune from crowd control unless he's using Unstoppable. So if you use any sort of crowd control ability, whether it's a Hulk from Bebop or Ivy Stone form, those sort of things, you can stop his ult and cancel it, then it goes on cooldown. So thinking about using CC on him if he doesn't have Unstoppable is probably a good idea.
Now when it comes to Apollo, some of the cool things you can do is using his ultimate Itani Lo Sahn with certain types of objects or obstacles or geometry or terrain, whatever you want to describe it as. For example, if I go above and I go for ult here, I can actually use the ground here, bounce off the ground, hit him, and I'll come up on the other side, like so. This is one of the ways you can use it. You can also curve it around objects kind of if you hit them at the right angle, like so. It's just all about using the terrain to your advantage. Or for example, if I come over here, I have an enemy here and I think they're getting away and I'm predicting that they're going to go through the doorway, I can ult, bounce off of here and hit them in the doorway. This is just some of the more simpler stuff. Like I said, you can do a lot of different things or just a lot of different variations. If it's an enemy behind some type of cover, you can ult above them and I'll hit them directly below. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that if an enemy is above you, you're not necessarily going to be able to hit them. So if I ult and I try to hit here, it doesn't hit him because he's above. But it's always like a line and below you. Sometimes you can hit people above you. It's hit or miss sometimes. I'm not saying you can't, but sometimes you're going to be missing it. The best ways to think about it is always going from a downward angle for the most part on anything, so that you can use different types of angles and different types of obstacles to your advantage to try to hit everybody. That's essentially just his ultimate dumbed down of what some of the steps or tips and tricks you can do with it.
But anyways, hopefully this video has helped you in any way, shape, or form. Now, I took quite a break from Deadlock, and now I'm seemingly addicted again, and we're back into Eternus. But anyways, if you like this type of content or want to see more, do let me know in the comments down below. Of course, like the video if you like it, subscribe if you're new. I hope you have a great and safe day, and I'll catch you in the next one.